Just 1 cup of buckwheat contains 23 grams of protein, and it's really high in copper, iron, and manganese. Hi, it's Crystal from Raw Culinary, and today I'm going to show you how to sprout buckwheat. Despite its name, buckwheat is actually not wheat. It's a gluten-free pseudo-grain that's actually related to rhubarb and is a seed. And these are buckwheat groats. Now, when we use buckwheat in raw cuisine, you want to make sure that you're getting unroasted buckwheat groats. There's 2 different kinds of buckwheat you can buy. The raw version, which is this one, or cassia, which has been roasted. So just like nuts and seeds, buckwheat does contain phytic acid, so it does need to be soaked and neutralized before you start sprouting it. And this is going to help, again, neutralize those enzyme inhibitors and remove the phytic acid. When you soak the buckwheat before sprouting, the buckwheat will actually start reabsorbing the phytic acid that's in the liquid. So you don't want to soak over 20 minutes. These are sprouting lids that you can get anywhere online. They're really easy to find. And they go on a wide mouth mason jar just like this. And then what you do is you just want to prop up the sprouting jar so that the water is able to drain. If you get too much water in here, they're not going to sprout properly, and there's a potential for mold to grow. A second method, if you can't find a sprouting jar, you can just use a fine mesh strainer and a bowl. So you would just put the buckwheat into the strainer once it's been soaked, and then you would just rinse it in here a few times a day and put it back on the bowl so that it has somewhere to drain. And I just like to cover it with a tea towel or whatever if I'm just leaving it out on my counter like this, and then just let it sprout for a couple days. So the first step you're going to do to prep the buckwheat for sprouting is we're going to soak it. And so this is going to remove the phytic acid and neutralize the enzyme inhibitors. And again, we're only soaking this for about 20 minutes. So our buckwheat has been soaking for 20 minutes. So now I'm going to drain it and rinse it really well and then put it on the sprout stand. So we've drained and rinsed the buckwheat really well, and then we're just going to prop it onto the sprout stand so that it can drain the water. Then I'm going to rinse it 3 times a day. If you're living somewhere really warm and humid, you definitely want to rinse it 3 times a day. If you're living somewhere cooler and dry, you can get away with doing it twice. And it will take about 2 days to sprout, again, depending where you live. So if you're living somewhere really warm, it's going to sprout really fast. Right now it's winter here in Vancouver, BC. It's going to take about 3 days probably, but you want to sprout it until you see a little tail, and you only need a couple millimeters of a tail, and then you know it's done and it's good to use in recipes. There's a couple of different ways that you can use the buckwheat once it's sprouted. You can use it just as it is after it's been sprouted. You want to rinse it really well, and you can use it as a porridge, put it in your blender and blend it up with some sweetener, some plant-based milk, some banana, and then top it off with maybe some granola or raisins. It's really nice. Or you can dehydrate the buckwheat once it's been sprouted. So this is the dehydrated sprouted buckwheat, and this is really good to make sprouted buckwheat flour. You can just put it in your high-speed blender and blend it up, and you have a really nice flour. Or you can just add it to smoothie bowls. You can add it to granola on top of your smoothies, and it'll give you a really nice crunch. I love buckwheat. I use it a lot. When I got into raw food, it was one of my favorite things to work with. It's so versatile, and it actually picks up a lot of flavor. So it's really good to season. You can season it and put it in the dehydrator. You can candy it with coconut sugar and different flavorings. So it's really fun to use. So I hope you enjoyed this video on how to sprout buckwheat. If you have any questions, just pop it in the comments below, and I'd be happy to help.